From SABC headquarters in Auckland Park, Johannesburg, welcome to this week's first edition of the Watchdog. My name is Vuyo Mvogo, and here's what we have in store for you tonight. In a few days, Professor Barney Pityana takes on as the chairman of the National Lottery Commission. Can he restore the confidence in the organization? The former principal of the University of South Africa is my first guest. Well, the National Lotteries Commission has again been in the news lately, and as has been the case previously, for all the wrong reasons. Last week, one of its commissioners, Thabang Mampane, resigned immediately, weeks before her term expired, following allegations of misappropriation of funds. Not too long ago, the Special Investigations Unit conducted a raid on the Commission's Northern Cape offices and froze a 27 million rand mention of former chairperson Professor Alfred Nebutanda. Last month, Cabinet approved the appointment of Professor Barney Pityana as the new chairperson. Professor Pityana joins us on the line from Gqebera. Good evening, Prof. Thanks very much for your time.
Good evening, Vuyo. Thank you very much for having me as your guest.
Well, I'm sure, when you were considering, taking on this particular task, you would have looked at the organization that you're now going to head and wondered what kind of an organization is it? What have been the problems around it? And as an outsider looking in, what did you see?
It's an organization, of course, Vuyo, that I know, although for a few years now, I have not been very close to it for a variety of reasons. But I do know it from when it started, because at the beginning, I was chairperson of Utingo, the operating management company of the then new lottery. And we operated the lottery for 7 years. Now, the National Lotteries Commission is a regulator of the lottery. It oversees the functioning and the appropriate functioning of the national lottery. It regulates all lotteries, not just the national lottery in the country. What was I seeing? Obviously, what came across was what everybody is concerned about, the extent of corruption and the reportage about corruption that we all read about. And it was for me a matter of grave concern, because I do believe that the national lottery and the resources that arise from it is a very, very important institution, a national institution that really enables particularly the poor and the needy for good causes to receive resources that go beyond what the government can offer in order to enable the heartbeat of this nation to function and to function appropriately. And therefore integrity is a critical aspect of that, because there is this partnership between government and the people, and regulated by the National Lottery, it becomes important. So the relationship of trust between the people and the National Lottery is critical for its appropriate functioning. So obviously I was concerned. When then I was asked if I would consider this, it was not difficult at all for me to say, yes, I will. I said, yes, I will, because it's a public service, it's a public duty. It is intended to enable, particularly at this time when South Africans are ravished by corruption and inequality and poverty and homelessness and disease, etc. So for all of those reasons, it is not asking too much for somebody like me to make himself available to make a small contribution towards alleviating the conditions of our people.
Now, when one reads, obviously, some of the reports, and when one looks at things like letters being exchanged between board members and executives and so on, it does seem like it's a conflict-ridden institutions with lots of acrimony between and within between members of the organization and within the organization in its entirety.
Thank you, Vuyo. That's the impression one has. But of course, there is a new board of the commission that has been in place probably for the last 3, at the most 5 months. And that new board has come on board in order to drive the National Lottery as it should. And I can say from my interactions with the board so far, it's a people of absolute integrity. It's the people who understand what the problems are. It's a group of people who themselves are people who've got a track record in public life in our country. And obviously, they understand very clearly what their purpose is, to really pull the organizations back on track. I also had an opportunity to meet and greet members of the executive team with the commissioner, and I had a sense that these were people who were very much committed and aware of the duty and the public duty that they were serving in the National Lottery. I'd had enormous interaction with the now outgoing, in fact resigned, Commissioner Ms. Mampane. And there's nothing that suggested to me in my interactions with the executive that this was an organization in deep, deep trouble. Of course, I have read the correspondence between Ms. Mampane and the new board, and I was aware of the executives, mainly the outgoing commission and the executives, taking the minister to court, and I was aware of the disagreements between the minister and the then board. But now we are turning a new leaf. We really do want this commission to really be about the business that the Act is there for it to do. And for that reason, the resignation of Ms. Mampane is not a matter of much regret, because Ms. Mampane, in any event, was about to exit after 10 years at the end of September. What is to be regretted is that Ms. Mampane claims to be resigning because she feels that there is a capture of the National Lotteries Commission by political interests. She doesn't give any basis for that, but that is her view. But it becomes necessary for the National Lottery to function, to be brought back on track, because by all accounts, it had lost its direction. Ms. Mampane is very, very convinced that many of the accusations leveled against the National Lottery and its operations are at best unfair, or even at worst derogatory of the work that has been done. She's able to answer whatever is gone. As far as I'm concerned, that is a matter that is past. And we have to look forward. We have to bring this organization back, while any other processes of the SIU or Hawks or whatever it is must continue. Our job is not to look back, is to correct and look forward.
Well, let me pick up on a few things you've raised, Prof. Starting with Ms. Mampane. In an interview she gave last week, she alleged that there was political interference. And knowing you, that's not the kind of thing you would put up with, if indeed it is true.
It's very important to understand that the National Lottery, if you like, is not a Chapter 9 institution, all right? And so it's not independent in the sense in which other institutions are. The National Lotteries Act is very clear about the role of the minister. And the minister is the accountable officer of the National Lottery. So when the minister raises issues about who should be the member of the board, or who causes the chairperson and other members of the board to be accountable. The minister is only doing his duty, his job that the Act has provided for him. So there's a misconception, it seems to me, in what Ms. Mampane says about the role of the minister and the political office that he holds. So I don't believe it is in fact correct to pretend that the National Lotteries Commission and the National Lottery is independent to the extent that it is not accountable to government. And the minister responsible in government is the Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition.
So you don't think it is interference as she is alleging?
No, it is a misconception. It is not interference. It is the duty of the minister. And from all that we know, there's hardly a minister who is responsible who would not seek to take action. In fact, some of us may even believe that the minister was very slow to take action because he relied on process. He wanted the SIU to do the investigation. He set up structures for investigating what was going on in the National Lottery. While at the same time, there were matters that were coming up. I'm sure Raymond Joseph would say that the minister himself was very slow to act. But nonetheless, the minister was acting responsibly in taking certain actions in order to correct what in the public mind was a matter of concern. The minister is very concerned about the image of the National Lottery. The minister is very concerned about the integrity of the members of the board of the National Lottery, and that is correct. He should be concerned.
In fact, I mean, the judge did say that if one considers the Lotteries Act as well as the Public Finance Management Act and the Shareholders Compact, all those things taken into account, Minister Patel actually had the authority to order the investigation.
Absolutely. It is within the purview of the powers of the minister according to the Act to order an investigation.
In fact, I mean, with so many cases that the SIU has had to take the investigations touching properties, the amounts of money involved, it is apparent that there is a lot going wrong there, notwithstanding what you were saying earlier about the integrity and commitment of the people who are there. I think there's prima facie evidence, if one looks back at all these cases over the years, that there is something very wrong going on there somehow.
I agree. I think many South Africans would agree. Now, you have to understand it this way, Vuyo, that every South African who buys a lottery ticket for 7 rand or 11 rand, I can't remember how much it is becoming a shareholder of the National Lottery. In other words, that person who buys that ticket expects some dividends out of it. There are two ways of the dividend. One is in the hope of becoming a millionaire or a multimillionaire. But the second reason is that they are committing to the task of development and improvement of the well-being of the most needy of our people, including the aspirations of this nation. It is a national development imperative. So for all those two reasons, it is imperative that the National Lottery becomes trustworthy and integrity becomes paramount in the way in which it goes about its business, because it's not doing it for itself. It's not a private business. It is in fact the people of South Africa who are invested in it each time they buy that ticket for whatever cost it does. And unless we recognize that as the National Lotteries Board, as the operating management company, as the executives of the board and in its secretariat, of the commission in its secretariat, all of us together have got to understand that the task that we're about is not about us. It's about a national responsibility that we have.
Do you think, the problems only have to do with corruption? Do you not think, Prof, as well, that it could well be that the way perhaps the company is structured, it renders it vulnerable to people who then abuse perhaps weaknesses in the system? Has anyone looked at perhaps maybe an overhaul of its entire structure and the way it has operated up until now?
I have no reason to believe that. I've looked at the national reports of the National Lotteries Commission for the last 3 years. I've looked at the annual operating management reports of the National Lotteries Commission for the last 3 years. I've looked at the finances of the National Lotteries Commission for the last 3 years. I've looked at the reports and minutes of the National Lotteries Commission, and I have met each of the members of the executive of the National Lotteries Commission. For one thing, the National Lotteries Commission board that has now been elected are people of the highest possible caliber imaginable. And I'm in no position to make a judgment on the capabilities of the national executives. They have a twofold responsibility. One is as a regulator. They regulate the National Lotteries Commission in the country, and they oversee, for example, the operations of Ituba, which is the operating management company, and ensures that Ituba functions and produces dividends and rewards as per contract that they have with the state. The second thing that it does, it makes sure that the national lottery in the country operates with the integrity that is intended for it, and that the resources thereof are distributed appropriately to meet good causes. So these dual functions have to function very, very well. As I speak to you today, I have no reason to believe that any of the members, for example, of the executive team of the national lotteries are not competent to discharge the tasks and the duties that they have, from what I can see. And I have no reason to believe that the National Lotteries Act, for example, has been done in such a manner as to enable the wrongdoing of the kind that we actually see. Some questions can be raised, of course, with the newer developments since 2015, I believe, whereby Meromotu, the National Lotteries Commission, could determine where the needs are and distribute funds, because it seems to me that much of the concerns that have been raised have been really about that function that the National Lotteries Commission has given itself, that it may, Meromotu, actually determine where the needs are at any particular time. From what I hear from the then Commissioner, Ms. Mumpane, some of that task has been done to fulfill some amazing possibilities, like the Solidarity Fund, for example, like the schools that had been destroyed during the protests in certain places of our country. But I am convinced that we can do better than that. We have to look at how we can improve on the mechanics of how the National Lotteries Commission actually functions, so that we never again have to go through this problem that we're going through this year. Thank you.
Well, I'm wondering, I mean, you mentioned one of the investigating editors, I mean, earlier. I mean, Ground Up has been doing quite a lot of work, investigations into some of the corruption that we have seen there, to a point where it sort of became, you know, the NLC's kind of number one enemy, as though, you know, they were busy tarnishing the image and reputation of the organization. I don't know what your attitude is like, I mean, as you're about to take on the responsibility of chairing the entity.
Any public institution worth its salt should welcome the eyes of society in what it does and how it does its work, because accountability is a fundamental principle of our Constitution. So we've got to be open and accountable in the manner in which we do our work. So Ground Up has found reason to raise its voice and investigate some of the goings-on in the National Lotteries Commission. The National Lotteries Commission should be grateful for that actually it has enabled the National Lotteries Commission to look at itself in order to improve how it serves the people of this country. And we can only support the efforts of civil society that seeks to understand how the Commission will. In fact, we should be going out of our way to answer the concerns of the public through civil society institutions like Ground Up, and there are many others as well. So one of the things that we have to do going forward is to make sure that we are an open, accountable organization that really seeks to help people understand how we function, and we must learn lessons from our mistakes.
You've also seen, of course, the reaction from some political party leaders and other people to your appointment. What do you have to say, I mean, to such people?
Well, I've had a mixture of reactions. I think since I have, from what I read, I don't read a lot of parliamentary stuff. The sense I have is that there's been widespread welcoming of somebody like me who is senior and who has been in public service virtually all my life in the new South Africa, and honestly, I can say without bleating my own trumpet, who's not been cannot be accused of any impropriety in any of the offices that I've held. Mm-hmm. But I've also seen some politicians who are complaining. Interestingly, the complaint is about age. I'm not averse to that. I don't take any offense to that. It's a fair point to make. But actually, it is ill-informed. It is, in fact, it's a point that needs to be answered. You see what I mean? If the minister has appointed a pensioner like me, it's important for the minister to say why on this occasion, in this institution, it was the correct thing to do. In another place, in another time, it may be appropriate to appoint a younger person to come forward. So one cannot be absolutist about this. And clearly the circumstances at the moment are such that somebody with my kind of track record appears to be the correct person. I'm very delighted that nobody has said that this person you're appointing is tarnished in his image for this reason and that reason. Nobody has said that. If somebody mentions, I can't do anything about my age, by the way, but I can say that there's a lot of international academic opinion that says actually age in many of these matters is not the issue, because at a certain age with experience and wisdom and insight and energy and productivity. There are certain times and certain places where age actually is an advantage rather than a disadvantage. So one can't be very absolutist about this at all personally. Thank you.
Professor Pityana, thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you to your colleagues. It's been good that you had me with you. Thank you. Good night.
Best of luck in the new job that you are about to undertake. After the break, President Cyril Ramaphosa has signed a new law barring municipal officials from participating in political organizations. But will it do the trick? That's a question we're asking. Up next. President Cyril Ramaphosa last week finally signed and assented to the Municipal Systems Amendment Bill, an important piece of legislation that now bars senior municipal officials from holding political office in a political party. It also provides for procedures and competency criteria for appointments of such senior municipal officials. Staff members dismissed for financial misconduct may not be re-employed for a period of 5 years. Well, China Dodovu is the chairperson of Parliament's Select Committee on Local Government. They were busy with this legislation. It actually went through them. Lindokuhle Vellem is a research analyst based at the Public Service Accountability Monitor in Makanda. Good evening to both of you. Thank you so much for your time.
Good evening, Vuyo.
Good evening, Vuyo.
Good evening to both of you. And Mr. Dodovu, if I may start with you. Piloting legislation is no easy matter. There's always arguments. There's always, going back and forth. People really are claiming their stakes, but also, of course, making sure that they are protected. Just going back to this process, which has given us what we have now that the president signed last week. What stands out for you, that which you as legislators, you felt, come what may, this is what we want to come out of this particular piece of legislation? What is the one thing that you really fought for?
Actually, there are two things that stand out of this process. The first one is the fact that the officials at municipal level will be barred, will be prohibited from occupying key positions within their political parties. That is the first one. This is quite important. It's an important milestone. But the second one is the fact that once you are charged and dismissed in one municipality, you cannot go to another municipality over a period of time. For me, this is quite important because it heralds a new epoch in local government, in which, given the challenges, the problems, and all of that the municipalities are facing, this is an injunction to say we want to improve service delivery, we want to bring about stability within the municipalities, and therefore these 2 points that I've just alluded to stand out for me, because in that sense, we think that the problem of administrative and political interface will be addressed to a larger degree, and no more again that you'll find a situation where officials move from one municipality to the other. And in most instances, these are people who are moving around because either they were charged with misconduct, because they were poor performing in other municipalities, and they jumped to other municipalities. And for me, there's a critical intervention that we have made as Parliament to intervene given the situation that is obtained currently in the country.
Let's stick with the first point a bit, Mr. Dodovu, if you will. Why? What's with political office? What's wrong with occupying an official occupying a political office at the same time?
I'll make an example. You are a municipal manager in the city of Matlosana, and at the same time you are the chairperson of the ANC in the region of Dr. Kenneth Kaunda. It means this duality has got to be addressed. If you can't get your way at the municipality where you are contracted, where you are working, where you are appointed for 5 years, you find a way of finding whatever issues that you have at the political level because you occupy a political office where a mayor, a speaker, or a chief whip accounts to you. And for me, this is quite problematic. And this piece of legislation says, no, you can't do that. You choose. You either choose to become an officer, an administrator, or you become a politician. You can't have both. And for me, this is quite important. The experience of the past have shown that this has immensely and immeasurably contributed in the kind of problem that we have at municipal level.
Ms. Vellem, what stands out for you in what we have in front of us now, signed by the President last week?
I think for us as civil society, this is quite a positive move in that it encourages a developmental institution, and for us it gives the monitoring a better understanding in terms of the blurred lines won't be there. But another thing for me is the element of being charged, and municipal officials then moving to other municipalities. We are not finding that. We're finding that there are no charges that are being laid, and you find officials jumping from one municipality to another. And from where we are, I feel that this demarcation of roles will set the authority on the municipal manager in order for consequence management to happen at that level. We're finding that people are not accounting for their actions and therefore not being charged, and they're not able to move to other municipalities. This move, it represents something positive in terms of civil society and participation on the public, for civil society and the communities that we then represent in the space.
Well,
thank you, Will.
Okay, this piece of law also provides for procedures and competency criteria for appointments of senior municipal officials. Why was that particularly important, Mr. Dodovu? And perhaps you can give us history and context to that issue as well.
Yes, it was quite important to ensure that in the first place, when there is a vacancy arising at municipal level, a municipality is obligated to advertise that particular post at national level. You can't restrict it to a particular region or to a particular locality or even a province. It must be a nationwide advertisement that you make so that you are able to attract the necessary skills and expertise within that particular municipality. That is the first thing. But the second thing, the legislation says you must, as a municipality, after appointing such a person, report immediately within 14 days to the MEC, and the MEC is obligated to report within 14 days to the national minister. For me, this is quite important because in that sense, there are checks and balances. There are no skills at municipal level. The municipality, local government is the weakest link in terms of our whole system of transformation of the civil service within the country. And therefore, it is quite pertinent to attract the necessary skills, people with the requisite skills, expertise, and qualifications to come on board at municipal level. And if that can happen, it will have a positive spin-off for all the municipalities across the board. And this is the kind of intervention that we made as Parliament, because clearly what you see is the fact that there are problems at municipal level, and these particular problems have got to be addressed in one way or the other.
Ms. Vellem, we know how some politicians are good or adept at, circumventing rules. It's not like there have not been rules even now at all, but people have broken the rules. They're good at manipulating systems to do things that they want to do.
Yes. I mean, we tend to find that particularly when it comes to procurement, communities have got a certain, when it comes to bid adjudication, and you request minutes of those settings, you don't get them because they have circumvented what the rules stipulate. And we find that then they will then appoint their political counterparts who then have businesses, get kickbacks from that service which they have rendered to their colleagues. And so the system, it stays the same and it starts decaying because services are not getting to the people. But now when those lines are no longer blurred, you will have an accounting officer that will account for each and every one of those decisions. But yes, there is room where they can, politicians can navigate, and they might find loopholes in the system as it stands to appoint those that they want for contracts particularly, because most of the money within local government is for service delivery and directly for communities that are affected by the lack of services, lack of water, refuse collection. And so how those are then managed and how transparent that whole process is, I think it will aid in terms of us, civil society and the communities, how we then monitor those processes. I mean, I would like to agree with the colleague on the call that you will find that in instances where the MPAC needs to have an oversight role over their principles within the political space, it's then difficult. And you find that political MPAC reports, they find their death within councils because those that are implicated are their their municipal political heads. And so we will wait to see what this act will bring for the development of our municipalities. What will happen with the cleanup, with the current officials in place? What's going to happen? I mean, are we going to wait them to die out? Are they going to retire? Will they resign? I'm assuming that the 1 year is for their political office. However, what happens when there's an official that does not meet the skills, that does not meet the expertise, or does not have the qualifications? Is there going to be a period where now quickly go and get your accounting degree and then come back, or is it a termination upon this bill as of the 17th of this month? So we as civil society are waiting to see the major cleanup and in anticipation of what will be next now that this law is in place, and those that are against the law, what will happen then?
Mr. Dodovu, in fact, Ms. Vellem has just took us nicely to where I was going to go next, because we've seen that Auditor General report after Auditor General report highlighting the issue of, shortage or lack of skills in the areas of municipal financial management, for example, financial governance, reporting, and so on. So does this begin to address that particular question as well? Because it's not just about corruption, it's about the fact that people cannot account for public monies that they're entrusted with.
That's correct. Other than ensuring that you attract the necessary skills, you need to ensure that there is accountability, because the AG says this very clearly, that the problem at municipal level is lack of accountability as well as lack of consequence management that must be enforced. And if you play a role of a player and a referee at the same time, that kind of situation is undesirable. It contributes to the situation that many municipalities in our country find themselves in, And for me, this is quite important. If all municipalities across the board implements this, this will go a long way. But equally important, this law also says the minister will issue some regulations in terms of how this will be implemented. In case that there is deviation, in case that there is non-compliance by municipalities in terms of this, there is a need for intervention, and the minister can intervene to deal with that particular issue. And for me, I call on all the provincial MECs, as well as the Minister of Culture, that we have crafted the legislation, we have passed the law, which is clear in no uncertain terms. What is it that needs to be done in precision? They just need to implement that, because there are problems at municipal level, and these particular problems have got to be confronted. And there ought to be consequences for those who deviate, for those who do not comply, because that is what the law says. And the law says the minister can even go to court, the MEC can even go to court to stop whatever illegality or something that is unlawful that would have happened at a municipal level in case that a municipality doesn't comply with what is contained now currently in the legislation that the president has signed. This is quite important. It's an important milestone. It's an important intervention to stop what is wrong at municipal level. And it is for those politicians, political authorities, to ensure that this is enforced, is implemented to the benefit of local communities who need stability at that particular level.
Of course, Ms. Vellem, I mean, we can have all the laws in the world. Someone has to make sure that they are indeed implemented, and it becomes a responsibility. This is an issue you as civil society have been raising throughout, that even the Auditor General, for that matter, that those who have roles to play, like Mr. Dodovu, as a member of parliament, they need to make sure that this piece of legislation, doesn't sit there. It actually gets implemented. In other words, they should play their oversight role, and you, as members of civil society, should continue putting pressure on our legislators.
No, definitely. I mean, we are currently working on a project with 4 communities, 3 in the city of Johannesburg and 1 here in Makanda, under the Action for Accountability project, where the process is to upskill our community members that we'll be working with within our civic action groups on local governance and their role in monitoring some local municipality. As it stands, the roles between the political and the administration, they're quite murky, and therefore, us as civil society or communities at large, they aren't really able to play their oversight role over the municipalities. But then now, I mean, with this piece of legislation, it gives somewhat a bit more power to communities in the oversight role. But yes, provinces and national, they need to have a stronger hand on municipalities that don't align with the laws of the land. And we're finding that pieces of legislation like Information Act, they are difficult for us to use because we have people that are standing guard. And we're currently finding that power is not really in the political seat. Power is in the bag. Those that have money have power. Therefore, even if you are a business person linked to the MM of a particular municipality who does not hold a political seat, but if there's power over the power of money really over them, then there are still more gray areas that we need to navigate, because yes, power it might be the title in some instances, but most times it's who is signing the checks. So who are they really accounting to? And how best do we play our role as the accounting body, the oversight body within a municipality? So it's positive, but there are a lot of rules and routes that need to be navigated so that we find a way through. Come the next amendment, we might have new installations within the bill. But for now, we want to navigate this new act with these communities. Get access to information, be part of the procurement processes, and encourage MPECs to open cases against maladministration within the municipality without fear or favor of political isolation. Thank you.
One last thing, Mr. Dodovu. Are there things that didn't make it to this act that perhaps people raised, or that could have gone some way in even strengthening this act now further, but for one reason didn't, or the other didn't make it?
Look, we received a lot of submissions from people, and people in unison were saying to us, we want accountable democratic governance, we want optimum service delivery to happen where we live, we want healthy and safety environments for all of us. And we tried our level best to ensure that in the final analysis, we encapsulate everything. I can't think of anything that we could have done better than this to ensure that there is stability at that particular level. Just one thing that I really want to emphasize, it is up to the MECs, it is up to the minister to ensure the implementation of this legislation. We are going to hold them accountable. We are going to call them to Parliament and tell us in precision what is it that they have done to ensure implementation. And in case of deviation and non-implementation of this, we are going to ensure that there is consequence management and we hold them accountable, and that we ask them difficult questions that must be answered by them, because we want stability. It is the best interest of this country that we have stability at municipal level, and this piece of legislation that we crafted will go a long way in addressing that. And as you ask the question, I don't think of any, because we try to do everything within our power in terms of ensuring that all those who are appointed have got the requisite skills, expertise, experience, and even the knowledge of doing the job, because that is what we need the most. And this dichotomy that exists between political and administrative interface must be addressed. And this is what we have done as Parliament to ensure that we deal with this. Let it go, let it unfold, let it be implemented, and in case that there are challenges, we'll have to discuss and see as Parliament what interventions will be needed to ameliorate this situation, that situation which will be obtained at that particular moment.
Well, let's hope that you do indeed do exactly that, Mr. Dodovu. Special thanks to both of you. Ms. Vellem, who's a research analyst based at the Public Service Accountability Monitor, and of course, Mr. China Dodovu, who is the chairperson of Parliament's Select Committee on Local Government, on the back of that law that was signed last week by President Cyril Ramaphosa, now barring municipal officials from participating in political organizations. That's our show for tonight. So join us again tomorrow night, same time.